Okay, I'll call a meeting back to order from our lunch break, and we're going closed session. I'm not sure how long it'll last for the public. But we have we have a number of important consultants that we have lined up, and that's why we're having this at 1 o'clock. But would you like to report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Board of Supervisors will now adjourn into closed session to discuss agenda items number 25, 26, and 27 on today's agenda. Agenda item number 25 is to confer with its real property negotiators regarding property known as the Palm Tag Ranch, APN 020-170-017, located off Cienega Road in Hollister, California. San Benito High School property, APNs 020-170-043, 059-020-001, and 059-020-003, located off of Nash Road, again in Hollister, California. The Chick/Tag paintball property, APN number 020-280-050, located at 2120 San Benito Street in Hollister, California. The agency negotiators are Steve Wittry, the Public Works Administrator, Adam Goldstone, Capital Projects Manager, Ray Espinoza, Interim CAO, Matthew Granger, County Counsel, Barbara Thompson, Assistant County Counsel, and Shirley Murphy, Deputy County Counsel. The negotiating parties are Ron Ross on behalf of the Palm Tag Ranch property owners, Michael Robustelli on behalf of the San Benito High School District, and Roland Chick on his own and on behalf of Tag Paintball. Under discussion today will be the negotiation and price in terms of payment. The authority to meet is found in California Government Code Section 54956.8. Agenda item number 26, the board will meet to confer with its labor negotiators. The agency's designated representatives are Dania Torres Wong, Allison Hauk, Ray Espinoza, Joe Paul Gonzalez, Melinda Casillas, and Georgia Cochran. The employees' organizations as the Management Employees Group, the Institutions Association, SEIU Local 521, the General Unit Employees, and Law Enforcement Management. Authority to meet is found in California Government Code Section 54957.6. Finally, the board will meet with legal counsel in regards to agenda item number 27 to confer on pursuant to subdivisions A and D1 of Section 54956.9 in the case of Purple Cross RX et al. Versus County of San Benito, Superior Court of California, County of San Benito, filed under case number CU-12-00060. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Let's go to closed session and start that. Thank you. Okay, we're back from closed session. County Counsel, would you like to report out?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Board of Supervisors met in closed session to discuss agenda items number 25, 26, and 27 on today's agenda. In regards to item number 25, the board met and conferred with its real property negotiators regarding the property known as the Palm Tag Ranch, APN 020-170-017, located off of Cienega Road in Hollister. The property commonly known as the San Benito High School, APN 020-170-043, 059-020-001 and 059-020-003, located off Nash Road in Hollister, California. And finally, the property commonly known as the Chick Tag Paintball property, APN 020-280-050, located at 2120 San Benito Street in Hollister, California. The agency negotiators were Steve Wittry, Public Works Administrator, Adam Goldstone, Capital Projects Manager, Ray Espinoza, Interim CAO, Matthew Granger, County Counsel, Barbara Thompson, Assistant County Counsel, and Shirley Murphy, Deputy County Counsel. The negotiating parties were Ron Ross on behalf of the Palm Tag property owners, Michael Rubistelli on behalf of the San Benito High School District, and Roland Chick on his own and on behalf of Tag Paintball. The terms and conditions were under negotiation, and the authority for that is California Government Code Section 54956.8. At this time, the board took no reportable action. In regards to agenda item number 26, the board met and conferred with its labor negotiators. Those negotiators were Dania Torres Wong, Allison Hauk, Ray Espinoza, Joe Paul Gonzalez, Melinda Casillas, and Georgia Cochran. The employee organizations were Management Employees Group, Institutions Association, SEIU Local 521, the General Unit Employees, and Law Enforcement Management. Authority to meet is found in California Government Code Section 54957.6. And once again, at this time, the board took no reportable action. Finally, the board met and conferred in regards to agenda item number 27 with its legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to subdivisions A and D1 of Section 54956.9. This is the case of Purple Cross et al. Versus the County of San Benito, Court of California, County of San Benito, case number CU 12-00060. And at this time, the board took no reportable action. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to, we have two more items on our regular agenda. CAO Espinoza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this particular item, item number 23 on our agenda, is going to be given to us by Steve Wittry, our Public Works Director, and he's going to be providing a report on efforts to obtain environmental clearance for county projects identified within the Capital Improvement Program. Steve?
Thank you, members of the board. Basically what this is a short report regarding our status trying to obtain approval for the California tiger salamander. That's a species of concern, which is causing difficulty on 3 of our current projects and potentially others down the line, those being the John Smith Road realignment as well as the Resource Recovery Park, and as well as potential for Union Road Bridge. One of the things that has become apparent as we work through this process is that standard mitigation land processes is you pay a check to the state and it goes into a bank and then they let you get your permit. And essentially, to make no mistake, what the permit is actually a take permit, so that if there actually is one of the species on site and we happen to damage it or kill it, it's permitted to do that. So that's why there's such restrictions on it, because you're killing a species that's protected either by the state or by federal agencies, so they take their job very seriously from the fish and game side. With that said, there really is no banks that have been set aside to date in San Benito County for the California tiger salamander. Staff, myself, Byron Turner, as well as Mandy Rose, will be meeting in San Luis Obispo with Fish and Wildlife to discuss our current efforts, both with Resource Recovery Park and with John Smith realignment, determine how we can best maneuver through this process to obtain those permits. There are several projects underway being forwarded by private developers that are trying to establish banks in San Benito County. This report is basically to make the board aware that those efforts are being made, and also to provide some insight that the best way for us to maneuver through this process may be to become a partner either with a private entity or a public entity, be it Caltrans or even another local entity like the San Benito County Water District, as they try to figure out their mitigation for their own West Hills water treatment plant. They have California tiger salamanders as well. So basically letting the board know that we were out there, we're trying to explore different ways to maneuver through this permitting process, and what it may in fact take to get there is a partnership of some fashion, either with a public or private entity, and I want to make the board aware of that we'll be pursuing that with Fish and Game at the end of this month, and hopefully have something to come back to the board to enter some kind of agreement, if there's a private side with a developer or public side with another agency. So I just want to let you know what's going on in that arena. If there's any questions on this process, that's what I'm here for today as well.
Okay, any questions, Supervisor Barrios?
Thank you. Just a recommendation to take a representative from the Santana Ranch, because they certainly have a plan for to mitigate, and I think it's important, if we're going to use that as leverage, that we need to have somebody there to show that. I'm sure there's no MOU or anything yet, an agreement, but at least to show that, yes, we're willing to move forward together. So that's my recommendation, because they're having issues as well with fishing game.
Right, and actually that was one of our potential partners, Santana Ranch, as well as Fairview Corners, and possibly even the Del Webb project over there. Those are the potential partners, without putting a name to them before. That's the names that we're talking about right now, and to ways to partner with them. The Santana Ranch process, as we have been told by them, they are actually under review right now for their process, and there could be an opportunity for partnership with them. So yes,
That would be good. They're closer than anybody, if I'm not mistaken. So, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Supervisor De La Cruz?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to know who hires these people. Instead of working with the community, they always get in the way.
Yeah.
Just my thought, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I had a constituent express to me that, and I think this is important. It's all of us want to protect the environment and make sure that species have, we all share this planet. I think no matter what your background is, we all feel that way. But what Fish and Game has a long history of in this county is overzealously interpreting the law. And I don't want the county to be a victim, way some projects have been victims as well. I think we need to be in the forefront and tell Fish and Game that's unreasonable and that we're not going to do that. And not be afraid to tell them go stick it someplace. In fact, the project that we had before lunch, it was interesting, because a couple of years ago I took a tour up there, and in part of the conditions of approval for that project is that they had to mitigate the time that they're build that house on one of the parcels. It has to be between a certain set of months, because it would disrupt the rutting of deer. And Salmon Canyon, you're not going to disrupt the rutting of deer no matter when you're building. Am I right, Mr. Espinosa?
You're absolutely right.
And but anyway, I think we need to work with our state partners. That is certainly a message that we want to convey. But then on the other hand, let's not get silly with some of the requirements that they're having us do to get these projects going. Okay, any public comment? Seeing none. It's just a report.
Just a report and advise, and if you had any direction to give me, that's fine. So I was just...
Okay, yeah, don't roll over completely.
Get them a bag of biscuits or something.
All right, we'll move on to our last item.
Yeah, this particular item is also going to be given us by Steve Wittry. He's going to be discussing the consideration of implementation of San Mateo County Heavy Operator Apprentice Program. Steve?
Thank you, Ray. Basically, this process has been in the works for well over a year as we've tried to deal with the different regulations, both of our own personnel rules and with dealing with particular unions. The genesis for this whole process is that in years past, the county roads, this is specifically dealing with reorganization or dealing with the roads department from Public Works. In years past, I'm talking before I was here, before many of you were on the board, the roads department consisted of many bodies. We had upwards of 30 people in the roads department, and we had different divisions of people, road worker maintenance 1, 2, and 3, and it was just natural progression. The people would go through and attain the different ranks. As you're well aware, over recent years, our roads department has been slashed dramatically, and we have very few workers now. What's happening is our workforce is aging, and some of our job skills are being lost, and our new crop of people coming in are reluctant to get those skills unless they know that it's something going to be a benefit to them. I'll put it that way. They will do the skills, but they're not seeing a lot of benefit for them on the other side. What we're trying to do with this program is implement something where the older generation of folks who are working through towards the tail ends of their careers are able to pass along their knowledge of equipment operation and of skill sets to the younger guys as they come in and fill those roles, or will be expected to fill those roles. Through this apprentice program, what we would do, it's to back up, it's voluntary for our current employees. It would be mandatory for future hires. It's a voluntary program now that would allow the older generation of workers out there that have the skill sets to train the younger generation. And that helps me out tremendously because with a less workforce, I have much more flexibility. The key area of example of this would be a Class A driver's license that's required to drive a large vehicle or a large vehicle in a trailer. Right now, I'm limited to a handful of drivers who have the Class A requirements. And if those individuals are sick or on vacation, it severely impacts what work we can do at any particular given time. So with that example, if we have this incentive program that allows these younger workers to obtain this license, that gives us more flexibility as a county. It makes us more efficient, bringing individual workers and not relying so much on the sick or the vacation time to try to schedule activities. So really what it does is it expands the flexibility within the roads department. It makes it more versatile and more able to respond, because I think the expectation is that we're not going to see in the near future a huge expansion of road workers. So what we need to do is make the workers that we have much more adaptable and much more flexible. So in summary, what this process would do is it would make a flexible classification for the road worker titles as well as the heavy equipment titles. The heavy equipment titles are included because rather than having the road worker explain there's a problem with this 10-wheel dump truck, he can say there's a problem with it. You can go drive it on the road, see what it's doing, or in the case of some project like a New Idria, they can actually become part of the road crew for that day, bring the equipment out there, and be licensed to do it and help in that process because we are so small. So it's a flexible classification. It creates a flexible classification that if you meet the requirements for this job spec 2, funding there, you would get that classification of job 2. If you get classifications and testing and competence, I'll say, in operating heavy equipment, the backhoe, the motor grader, the loader, every other heavy equipment operation out there, we would have a certification test, either handled through, administered through, back up a little bit, I'm getting ahead of myself. We would have a test that would be done for these to make sure they're proficient. We would have it proctored either by someone from Monterey or Santa Cruz County, so that there could be no statement that the supervisor doesn't like me, so therefore he didn't pass me. We wanted to have a disinterested third party. And although that relationship hasn't been fully developed, they've agreed to do something like that. In the interim, we also have an agreement. We've been working with Gene Herndon from Trindell Insurance Group, who's, I think you're all aware of who he is with Trindell, has done heavy equipment training in his background, and he has offered to sit in for us as well to help create this testing protocol. The bottom line is to make sure that whatever test is out there, make sure that the operators would be proficient, safe in operating the equipment to themselves and to the public, because they'd be out in the public roadways. So that would be the classification to go from a 2 to a 3, funding being available. So where we're at right now is we have job descriptions that have been included in the packet, and what we'd like to do is really have those approved or considered and move along with this program. So if there's any questions, or I have Georgia here who help with get this through.
I have a question of Georgia. And I think I know Georgia knows what my question is going to be. Didn't we just talk about that earlier, something like that, Georgia, in a different room?
Yes.
Okay, just want to bring it out.
Well, what this is we have, again, we have changed the minimum qualifications for a number of the road crew and equipment folks with respect to the skills that they need, and not just at the 1 level, but at the 2 level and the 3 level. And the idea, is Steve's talking about the flexible move through there. Again, voluntary on the part of current employees. New employees will be hired with the expectation that they will have to get a Class A. They must maintain a Class A. And this was something we discussed with the union last week at great length, because what that Class A license does is put these folks into the Department of Transportation's random drug and alcohol testing pool. So, however, again, current employees can choose to join or not join. New employees will apply knowing what the conditions are. So that's where these changes have come about. We did meet with SEIU, and they are in agreement. They've written back understanding the agreement. They've also agreed to work with Steve in delivering a joint message to the employees so that they all get the same information kind of at the same time, and you don't have this, well, that's not what my union rep told me. Wait a minute, I heard the department say this. So they're going to try to do that joint message to avoid any rumors or concerns.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Supervisor Barrios?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I like the concept. I think it gives us more flexibility and it gives us more trained employees. So I think it's great moving forward. I do have some concerns with the way it's written up, you know, like the examples of duties. Just, you know, things kind of run in together. It needs to look more professional when it's given to a potential employee. So I would look at those. Page 392 is one example. They may use the shovel work to open, whiten, da-da-da, and then there's no break, and it starts with performance maintenance. It just needs to be clear, because that could be challenged or questioned later. On page 393, the only concern I have is that this will encourage employees. It may encourage or discourage. And the one reason it could discourage is because they're having to pay for their own license, which I know is something we asked that question, like Supervisor De La Cruz brought up in another room, and so that's the only concern that I have. It automatically bumps them up, but will it give them additional dollars? It will not, right? It'll just put them in a different category.
They would get going from a classification 1 to a 2 is a raise.
It would include a raise. Oh, I was under the impression that it would just give them the title, but not necessarily. It would give them the raise.
We didn't, in the AIT, I mentioned that we didn't adjust any salary classifications within the additional titles, but from a 1 to a 2 is paid higher rate than a 1.
Okay.
And a 3 is paid a higher rate than a 2.
Than a 2.
But we didn't adjust those from the previous levels to the current levels that have been revised for this.
Oh, got it. Okay. So then that is an incentive then,
Yes.
because they're definitely going to get a raise. The way it's written, it looks like within 6 months of completion, they would get this raise in money and in title. But it doesn't really specifically speak to a person that's already in the program or as an employee.
So basically what it says is they need to be getting their Class A license within 6 months, but they have to serve in each class for a period of a year as a 1 prior to getting that.
So then they were considered a hire in that position. Once they're put in there, they'd be like a new hire.
Let me try to give you an example. If I were a road maintenance worker 1 and I was hired, within 6 months, I need to be able to get this license. And 6 months later, presuming I have the skills, have passed the test, that's when I could advance to the level 2, to the road maintenance worker 2. So I have 6 months of training to get the Class A license, because we recognize the road maintenance worker ones coming in they're not going to have that license except on a fluke if you happen to find someone. But generally, those folks don't have it. So they have the opportunity, the experience on the job to get that training and pass that driving test.
And I understand all that. I think it's just the way that it's written. It says requirements within 6 months from date of hire. So if you have an employee who's been with us, was hired 5 years ago, then it needs to state that 6 months from date of change of title and new hires, if you know what I mean. You need to be able to identify both.
We could say, or entry into the program.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, because then
We can
this
do
way,
that.
it doesn't address just new hires or a hire. It would be an employee that's been here for a while. So, and then on page 390.
And that will be the case initially.
Right,
Eventually, it's all going to be date of hire.
okay.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Well, no, it's a follow-up question.
Okay.
But aren't the current employees, if they want to get involved in this, it's voluntary. They don't have to. They don't have to qualify within 6 months of any time.
Correct. The current employees do not have to do this.
And that's the statement, employees hired after August 20th and employees who have volunteered. So if you're neither one of those, this paragraph doesn't apply to you at all.
Okay. And then on page 395, Georgia, you have more run-in type of descriptions of examples of duties. So please look at those and just have breaks in them, whether it be commas or semicolons, so that this way it looks more, like I said, more professional.
We can make those edits.
Yeah, and then on page 403, I'm going to look at that one now.
Oops, sorry.
Now, training will, on page 398, it says, training will complete excavation, rough and finish grading. Do they mean complete or will include excavation, rough and finish grading? Because training doesn't complete anything, it just,
Is that where-
on page 398 under,
I thought you were 403.
yeah.
398? Okay.
398,
That's
under examples of essential duties. And
That's supposed to say, excuse me, that's supposed to say consist of.
okay, there are other areas that is worded the same way, and that can
should
be a
not-
little confusing.
Okay. I thought we had changed those last week, because that was something we discussed when we met with the union.
Okay.
And we were making that change, and I remember making that, so I'm not quite sure how we did this. But those are things that, those are definite edits we can make.
And on one of these descriptions, you have actual little bullets on there, and that really sets the tone for a little, for easier to understand the examples of duty. So I would recommend you use them throughout if you can. And just two more things, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure, this is all so new, and I want to encourage people to do this, but it just needs to be presented in a way that, that they will feel comfortable making those changes. Now, it talks about under examples of duty for an assigned area. Does that limit you, Steve, to where you will not be able to send them out countywide? They will only be able to do that on an assigned area, so now you're going to put yourself in a position where you can't use them all over?
Under which area?
Under examples of duty on page 406.
406, okay.
The very first one, it says provides day-to-day supervision for road construction and maintenance activities for an assigned area of the county. I just think that ties our hands and that it should be a little more open.
Well, we can change it certainly, but the idea would be that they would be assigned a job, and over that course of that job, for example, New Adria road work down there.
Okay.
They would be assigned that area for that piece of time, and then they'd be assigned somewhere else for a piece of time, and they would serve as the manager, the supervisor of that work in that area. If it's
Okay.
confusing, obviously we can change that, but the intent is that the area would be the area of a project. So it's within the county, but that area could be limited.
Yeah, I just
We
don't
can
want,
change it if it's-
I don't want an employee to, you know, a union employee to go back to the union and say, hey, they had assigned me to this area and my,
Right.
you know,
Yeah, to
work
me,
set.
it could be a safety issue too. If a person is relatively new to a piece of equipment and you hate to put them in an area that might be inherently dangerous, like the Salinas Grade or something. It's steep and you go off the road, you end up in a canyon. But I think some of that might be part of it too.
I don't know, just when I read it, I
Part
just
of
thought-
this assigned area is designed to kind of help. Remember, this is a tool for both the Public Works Department,
Right.
HR, and applicants to positions. So, oh my gosh, day-to-day for staff functions on what? And so really, the assigned area is wherever they're assigned that day. And
Well, then it has to be that a little more detailed so that they don't think that they're only going to be working in an assigned area going in, and that's where they stay from there on. Just a thought.
I appreciate what you're saying, and the reason that I'm hesitant, we can change it, but that's pretty common terminology.
Okay. If it is, then
Where
it's-
you have the details of that, it truly is in the actual operation, whether they bid shifts or bid, hey, I want to work on these capital improvement projects, kinds of
If
things.
it isn't an
And
issue,
those
then-
become internal issues.
I'm not going to worry about it. Just at first glance, I thought it might be. And then the last one is that inmate workers, under page 409, it talks about classifications, supervise inmate workers or other temporary help. Again, if we decide to hire somebody permanently, are we tying ourselves, limiting ourselves to who this person can supervise? it's assuming that we're only going to have temporary help.
And typically, that job description, that's all they work with. That's basically, we have 3 of those people. We have one who works in the Parks Department and two who work in the Roads Department. That particular work crew supervisor is the one who typically goes out and gets the jail crews. And we wouldn't put a full-time person under that supervisor. That supervisor, that's who does this, that's the sound wall crews. They pick up trash on the sides of the roads. They
Okay.
maintain the park. That's what this work class does. It doesn't actually supervise roads workers.
And
or
I'm okay
permanent
with it.
employees.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, great. Is the, there's not enough changes to not take an action today, or should we wait and make the verbiage changes and then bring this back to the next meeting?
I think they're mostly just the way it is outlined. I think the wording is probably fine the way it is.
I would say that they're minimal changes, non-substantive changes with respect to format, or whether we have a run-on sentence, or whether we should add bullets instead of just lines. Those certainly are not substantive. Nothing I've seen here is substantive.
Okay.
But
If the
that's
board
the board's call.
agrees with that assessment, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll go ahead and make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we approve approved per staff recommendation with the spelling and grammar errors that are on the outlines.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none. Thank you for attending the Board of Supervisors meeting. Motion to adjourn. Okay, we're done. Thank you.